on, Jay. How you going back like 40 years on me right now? Shout out LA Dream Team. You don't remember that?
Who was in the Dream Team?
That was Dr. Dre.
And who else?
Ooh, you put me. Let me see. Nah, not easy. Who?
Lonzo and Egyptian Lover.
Yes, sir.
Oh, for real?
And Egyptian Lover.
Oh,
come on, man. You can. I'm telling you, I can't be faded, bro.
No.
I can't be faded, bro.
Yeah, this guy, Jay. This guy. All right. LA Dream Team, man. That's going back, man. What's that? 86 or something like that?
That's back.
That's going back. Way back here on the Drive, guys. Sactown Sports 1140. Drapes, High Flyer, and Jay in the building. We got a special guest joining us right now. Sactown's finest right here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Our guy, Yogi Stewart, Michael Yogi Stewart. What's up, man?
Let's go, Sacramento.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen.
Come on, yo. You was a baby when that was out, baby.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
What's up with you, man? Thanks for coming on with us, man. 8-year NBA vet, played with the Kings, Kennedy High School's finest.
Only thing wrong with him. That's the only thing wrong with him. He's a Cougar. He's a Cougar, baby.
Green Haven, baby. Born and raised.
Yogi, man, thanks for coming on, man. First of all, before we get into all the storytelling, we just had storytelling with our guy, High Flyer, Henry Turner. What are you up to right now? Where are you at?
I'm in Orlando. I've been here since I bought a house here in 2000, and I've been here ever since. Raised my kids here. This is home now, a long way from home.
Yo, Yogi, I kid you, man, because I'm a Burbank Titan, you know, same thing, same Florence Road. You know how it is. Look, he's
Look, I can say with 100% honesty that we never lost to Burbank.
Hey, look, I'll return the message and say that was different eras, so I definitely understand. But no, it meant you growing up, you were older than me. Watching you and, you know, the Russell Osbys, guys like that was over in Kennedy. You guys definitely had super game over there. But what does it mean for a person like you to come from Sacramento and to get to the level that you achieved?
You know what, man? I always say this. You know, my brother was 4 years older than me, and you know, I grew up watching, you know, Kennedy basketball, and, you know, the battles that they had, you know, the Kevin Johnson, you know, Eric Goodman and, you know, all those guys, Donnie Johnson. I grew up, I ended up being a Sacramento King, but when I was growing up, my goal was to be a Kennedy Cougar. And you know, yeah, and that's you know, that's what I wanted to be. You know, when I was growing up watching those guys play, you know, that's what I wanted to be. I had no aspirations of being a professional basketball player. I wanted to play for the Kennedy Cougars.
Wow.
So, you know, I you know, Sacramento, you know, will always hold a special place in my heart. You know, we always laugh about this. Being from Sacramento, you know, we always, you know, we have an irrational love for the city, and you know that was my heart. That was my love. I wanted to play for Kennedy. You know, the Sacramento, you know, will always hold a special place in my heart. But that being said, being able to, you know, play a year for the Sacramento Kings and, you know, playing in Arco Arena, you know, it was a dream come true. You know, it was great. You know, I love the city. I love the Kennedy Cougars. You know, we dominated during that time. There's nobody that can ever say, you know, well, except for Jesuits. I hope Ike Fontaine and J.J. Cole listen. But yeah, no, I love the city. Love Sacramento. That's where I'm from. Always much love for the city.
You know what, Yogi? Henry Turner here. When I first met a young Yogi, we were playing with Gus Armstead. We worked out.
Yes, sir.
We worked out almost every day, man. Talk about how some of those summer leagues and all the workouts and stuff we used to do back in the day, how we really got prepared. Did he even try to make that push?
Come on, man. I mean, you know, Gus, Sacramento legend. You know, all of us that came up in the city, you know, Gus was the one who worked all of us out. You know, I remember, you know, when I first got out of Cal, and you know, I had two workouts. I had two teams that gave me an opportunity. One was the Kings and one was the Warriors. Ended up playing for the Kings. But when we were working out before that first season, we were all working out with Gus. And, you know, I remember, you know, sitting there and, you know, that first year, right before training camp started, you know, Mitch Richmond and those guys were in the gym. And, you know, Gus was the one that kind of first made me believe that, you know, I had an opportunity to make the team. You know, we were playing pickup games, and you know you know, Mitch and those guys were playing, and you know, Gus is, you know, like I said before, he's a legend in the city. Love him, and he was the one that first got me believing that I had an opportunity, and it worked out for me. And you know, a lot of that is because of Gus.
Got Michael Yogi Stewart joining us. Yogi, I'm just looking at your career, man, and I got so many questions about it. Just tell me about just your first season, your one season here in Sacramento, your rookie year, and you getting some extensive playing time, my man. You know, what was that like for you, hometown guy, really getting 20-plus minutes a game here in Sacramento?
Yeah, no, I you know, I honestly, you know, you know, my father played overseas for his whole career. And, you know, coming out of Cal, you know, I had a decent career at Cal. Like, you know, I did okay, but, you know, I didn't get invited to any of the NBA camps. You know, you know, that just didn't seem like that was the path for me. But, you know, Scotty Sterling, rest in peace.
Yes, sir.
You know, he believed in me. I worked out for the Kings. He called me the day after the draft and said, "Look, you know, we couldn't draft you, but we loved your work ethic. We have a guy named Peja Stojakovic that we just drafted, who's coming here to work out. We want you to come and work out with him, and we'll see what happens." So I moved back into my mom's house, and I went and worked out every day that summer with Peja and the you know, the guys that were in the Kings front office. And, you know, they gave me an opportunity. You know, I never thought that I would be an NBA player. I did not think that was my path. But, you know, just going up there with those guys every day and working out, and, you know, seeing Peja work, and, you know, working out with Al Bianconti.
Yeah, Big Patty.
You know, yeah, Big Al. You know that. You know, they gave me a chance, and, you know, I made the most of it. Man. And, you know, I have nothing but great things to say, and you know, they gave me a chance to make a living, and I'll you know, I'm grateful forever for those guys for giving me that opportunity.
Man, joined by Michael Yogi Stewart, Sacramento Zone. Mike, after that, you had an opportunity to slide to Toronto and play a little international ball, albeit in the NBA. Yeah. What's your memories of playing in Toronto? And, you know, we've come to know that it's a crazy atmosphere up there. Did you always see it that way? Did you feel that when you were up there playing?
Oh, man, look, I mean, if anybody asked me today what my favorite city in the league is, you know, number one, I'm always going to say Sacramento, because that's where I'm from. Mm-hmm. But, you know, number two is always going to be Toronto. You know, and I think most guys in the NBA would say the same thing. Everybody, you know, would probably think LA or New York or Miami or whatever, but most guys would say Toronto. You know, it's a beautiful city. You know, a lot of people say it's a clean New York. And when I was there, it was kind of the beginning of a different era. You know, when I came, Vancouver was still in Vancouver, but shortly after that, they moved to Memphis. So we were the only team in the country. So, and on top of that, you know, we had, you know, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, we had a hell of a young core that ended up being the superstars in the league. So I had the best seat in the house for 4 years, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Yogi Stewart joining us. Yogi, you mentioned Vince Carter. You got to play with a number of all-time greats, especially in their young career, their rookie years. Let's start with Vince Carter. What was a young Vince like in Toronto?
Oh my God. I mean, the first, we talk and laugh about this all the time today. So Vince lives in Orlando as well. So he's my neighbor. And, VC is the, obviously, the most athletic, one of the most athletic guys in the history of the NBA. But, his skill level was top notch as well. I mean, Vince is a guy, like we said, we laugh all the time. We used to come to practice and our coach would say, hey, if somebody makes a shot from half court, no practice today. And at that time we had Vince Carter on the team. We had Tracy Murray, California legend, UCLA, and Dell Curry. A lot of people know him as Steph Curry's dad, but I was always comfortable that one of those guys was going to make and those guys would shoot jump shots from half court.
Right.
So, VC was, one of the most talented players to ever play in the NBA. But more than anything, just a good person. And it was, I don't know. I don't know the best way to say it, but it was, my honor to, to have the best seat in the house, to watch him become the player that he became, because he's, obviously a Hall of Famer. He got his jersey retired by 2 teams this year and made the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But, VC was just, he was on a different level.
Joined by Michael Yogi Stewart. Paul Pierce, Vin Baker. There's so many guys that you've had the opportunity to play. I know this is way out of left field, like Barry Bonds. Ricky Davis. What was it like to rock with Ricky Davis? Because from the outside looking in, people was like, Rick was a character.
It's on the end too. It's not on the outside. It's on the end too.
Hey, look, man, it probably take
twice too. I think you played with him twice.
I did. I played with Rick in Cleveland, and then we got traded together to Boston.
Yeah. And
we probably need a late night platform. But yeah, you know what, man? I ran up against some great dudes, man. Rick was one of them. Rick was one of those guys who could stay out all night, party all night, but was in the gym, late at night, early in the morning, putting his work in. We all had keys to the gym. You could come to the gym at 1:00 in the morning, and Rick, he had the gun set up, and he was, what he would do is he would set the timer on the gun so that he could start at half court, run to the 3-point line, shoot a 3, run back to half. I mean, he would do this stuff all night. So, a lot of people don't realize, and it's kind of like Dennis Rodman, where you might think that those guys are crazy and that they're, hanging out all night, and that's a fact. But they were also putting their work in. And Rick was one of those guys that was one of the hardest workers that I've ever been around.
Yogi Stewart joining us here on the Drive Guys, Sactown Sports 1140. Ricky Davis, we talked about. Vince Carter. I got to ask you about a young kid by the name of LeBron James.
Yeah.
You got to see LeBron his rookie year. It's crazy to think he's still out there playing. I mean, it's unbelievable. What was that like, man? I mean, because he came in with a lot of fanfare.
Hey, man, I've been retired forever, right? I mean, playing in the NBA was a lifetime ago. but Bron is still playing, and I got traded from Toronto to Cleveland, and Bron was a rookie when I got traded, and one of the best early stories is we had that team that first year in Cleveland was kind of a mix of older guys and younger guys. So we had older guys were Tyrone Hill, Jonas Ilgauskas, Benbow Coles. So we had a lot of older guys, but we also had young guys, LeBron, Carlos Boozer, Darius Miles, so DeJuan Wagner. So the first day that I ever met LeBron, we were playing pickup in the gym, and we, the way that we did it was old guys versus young guys, and LeBron was a little bit late that day, so we played a couple games, and then Bron came in, and they didn't lose another game that day. Bron was special. From the first day that I saw him, I'd heard a lot about him. He used to come I was there the year before he got drafted. So he used to come to the games and, sit courtside, and, he'd be with Phil Knight, and we'd be like, man, who is this kid? And so ended up, getting drafted by Cleveland. And but that day, the first day I ever saw him, he just had something special, just his competitiveness, his ability, just his mindset was completely different than most people that I've seen. And I'm so proud of him and what he's been able to do in his career. And the funny thing is, me, LeBron, and DeJuan Wagner were all teammates. And I guess I have to add Carlos Boozer to that too. So we were all teammates, and now we all have sons that play and that are about the same age. My son and LeBron's son were McDonald's All-Americans together. Ooh. So, we got a chance to reconnect, and, seeing those guys play together was pretty special.
Yo, that was one of the questions I wanted to get in there is versus how much do you watch the game, meaning the NBA, knowing that your son is tied to a high level of basketball right now. And of course, the sky is the limit. What's your intake on the NBA right now? Do you watch a lot of it? Do you keep up with it?
Sure, no, absolutely. I mean, I will say I probably watch more college basketball because my kids play college basketball than NBA, but I do watch both. I mean, I spend most of my time watching, that's all I do. I mean, I'm a huge football fan. I'm a 49er
49er!
Come on, man.
Yeah, shout out to the 49ers. I got some friends that live in Sac that are haters. They're Raiders fans, so we argue about that all the time. But yeah, no, I watched. I love football. That's might be my favorite sport right now. But I do spend a lot of time watching college, breaking stuff down so I can help my kids, and by extension, NBA stuff. I mean, I want to make sure that my guys know, what's going on and, how people are playing and, making comparisons to, what they do to, what, different guys in the NBA are doing, because that's ultimately what their goal is. And I'm doing everything I can to help them get there.
Now, Yogi, let me ask you this. You have to watch your son play, and I'm pretty sure you teach your son and you train your son. But do you train him the old school way, or do you let him play the new jack the 3-point shot way?
You know what? It's crazy, man. Like the way that it is now, if you can't shoot, they're not even looking at you as an option. I mean, it's different. Like you don't. Back when I played, there was real role players where, like I couldn't shoot a lick, and I'm not, I'm not embarrassed to say that. My job was to block shots and rebound and bring energy and that type of thing. But nowadays, if you don't have that high level of skill, it is it's tough for you to overcome that. and when the scouts come out and they evaluate and all that kind of stuff, even if you never shoot a three in your NBA career, when you're working out and trying to get an opportunity, they want to see that you at least have the ability to do that. So I'm kind of in the middle. I tell my kids that they need to be able to do that, but at the same time, playing a role, mastering your role is also important. So in a workout, if you have to, make some threes and show them that you can do it, cool. But once it comes time to play, you have to, whatever role that they have, earmarked for you, you got to be great at that too.
Michael Yogi Stewart joining us. Last one for me, Yogi. You play with our boy Doug Christie out there DC, in Toronto, right. DC. Now he's the head coach of Sacramento. What do you make of that, man?
Right. Proud of DC, man. Doug was always, he was just one of the most cerebral, hardest workers. He just, you come in the gym, he was always there early. The DC was one of those guys that would, he would shoot. He would come in and work on his jump shot, but he was shooting 2 feet away from the basket. And he would do that for an hour before practice. He was just one of the hardest workers. Very humble. And I'm honestly not surprised that he's a coach now. Because he was smart. He was, cerebral. He was, he was just one of those guys that you looked at and thought you could learn something from. And, I'm proud that he took that path. It's funny, you go through your NBA journey and you make friends with different guys and, different guys end up doing different things. And some people end up doing different things that you expected them to do. But DC is one that he's doing exactly what I expected him to do.
Our guy, Sacramento legend, Michael Yogi Stewart. We appreciate you jumping on with us, man. We got to do this again, man. People still fond of you. They know you're a high school legend, a Kings legend as well, man. We appreciate you coming on the Drive Guys here.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's our guy, Yogi Stewart, right there. When we come back, man, in about 10, 15 minutes, we got the big dog coming up as well. So we continuing on. It's the Drive Guys. Coming up next, we'll look at Game 6 and get you ready for Game 7 between the Pacers and OKC. And Antoine Carr coming up at 5:10. See you next on Sactown Sports 1140.